They said the Chupacabra hunts with teeth, but it wasn't the claws that doomed them. It was her voice, calling from the forest. Scott followed it. Elena tried to stop him. But the search team only found one body. The Darien Gap isn't a place on a tourist map. It's a sliver of hell between Panama and Colombia where roads give up, and the jungle devours everything: light, sound, and even time. The trees grow too thick, their roots tangled like veins under infected skin. Birds don't sing here. The air smells of damp earth and something sweet, rotting sweet. Locals avoid even speaking its name aloud after sunset. It's not cursed. It's patient. The fog hugged the floor like a suffocating blanket the night they arrived: Scott, Carmen, and Elena. Just three friends looking for a waterfall they saw on some blog post. Scott, 28, was the quiet observer, always trying to make sense of the world through his phone lens. He wasn't reckless, just curious. The kind of curiosity that gets mistaken for bravery. He was fascinated by forbidden places. Places that push back. Carmen, on the other hand, lived for the thrill. She was all laughter and instinct. She didn't believe in ghost stories, even though she grew up hearing them. If it had teeth, we'd see it on TikTok, she'd joke. But the forest didn't care about punchlines. Elena was the glue. Sensitive, grounded, always the one double-checking their coordinates and packing extra batteries. She didn't want to come, not really. But Carmen had that pull, like gravity, just with sarcasm. Then there's the fourth. No one really saw it, not at first. But it saw them. From the moment their boots touched the mossy soil, it listened. Not like a predator. More like a puppeteer waiting for the strings to tighten. It had no name, but locals once whispered about something that could wear your brother's voice like a mask. It didn't chase. It didn't roar. It whispered. It waited. And when it called, it always sounded like someone you'd die for. Because it was. And Carmen was about to hear her own voice, calling from the trees. 2 days earlier, the sun was bright, and danger still wore a friendly face. They had just checked in at a small eco-lodge deep in the jungle, the kind that boasts off-grid serenity on their homepage. Carmen was already trying to get signal for selfies, Elena was unpacking portable chargers, and Scott was glued to a tab titled, Unexplained Disappearances in Darien Forest. He wasn't just browsing. He was digging. He stumbled across a thread, grainy videos, cryptic blog entries, and a short documentary titled The Ones Who Didn't Come Back. In it, locals spoke about a place called La Garganta del Diablo, a hidden waterfall that supposedly swallowed groups whole. The pattern was always the same: people went in, no one came out. Or if someone did, they weren't quite themselves anymore. Scott brought it up that night by the fire, halfway through a bottle of rum. "There's this waterfall," he said, like it was a secret worth keeping. Carmen's eyes lit up, of course they did. Forbidden places were her love language. Elena didn't laugh. "Why would you even want to go there?" she asked, brows knit. Scott shrugged, because places that hide always have a reason. That's when Julio entered the picture. He was local. Quiet. Probably mid-30s. Worked at the lodge. When he heard what they were planning, his face went pale in a way that wasn't theatrical, just old fear being stirred back to the surface. "Don't go," he said simply. "Especially not after dark. The forest, it doesn't forget voices." Carmen rolled her eyes. "We'll take pictures, be back before noon." "What's it gonna do, tweet at us?" But Scott wasn't laughing anymore. Neither was Elena. And Julio? He just looked at the fire and said, "If you hear someone calling your name, don't answer. It won't be who you think it is." But how do you ignore the sound of someone you love crying for help? The real question wasn't if they would go. It was how many would come back speaking in their own voice. They left early the next morning, backpacks light, hearts lighter. Carmen had convinced them it would be a quick detour. Scott brought his camera. Elena brought a first aid kit. No one brought a sense of hesitation, not yet. The trail was barely a trail, just a suggestion of one. Vines hung like nooses, and the trees grew so dense above them that the sun became a rumor. Every few minutes, a faint rustling would echo behind them, too soft to identify, too frequent to ignore. Carmen kept laughing it off, brushing leaves out of her hair. It's probably a raccoon. Or a squirrel with commitment issues. But when they reached the waterfall, even she went quiet. It was massive. Untouched. Water spilled from a cliff face into a dark, glassy pool. Mist floated around the edges like it had nowhere else to go. The air was too still. No insects. No birds. Just the fall, and a silence that didn't feel empty, it felt full. Watching. They stayed anyway. Stripped down. Jumped in. Took photos. For a moment, it felt like paradise had let its guard down. Then Carmen heard it. A voice. Faint. Behind the trees. She climbed out of the water, shivering but smiling. Guys. I think there's someone else out here. Scott raised an eyebrow. Elena froze mid-sentence. Carmen grabbed her towel and disappeared into the trees before anyone could stop her. Minutes passed. Then more. Scott called out first. Carmen. No answer. Elena tried. Stop messing around, this isn't funny. Still nothing. Eventually, they found her towel snagged on a branch, her footprints vanishing into the underbrush. And beside them, something else. Larger. Not barefoot. But not quite human either. Scott took a step back. Elena whispered, "She's just messing with us, right?" He didn't answer. He was listening. Because somewhere deep in the woods, they heard her again. Carmen. Crying. Begging. And that's when Scott knew something was wrong. They had only just begun to search. But the forest had already started to feed. You can't go looking for someone who doesn't want to be found. Especially when they're no longer the one calling your name. That night, the fire barely held. The jungle pressed in from all sides, like it was leaning closer just to listen. Scott sat clutching his camera, though the battery had already died. Elena sat with her knees to her chest, eyes wide, tracking every sound like a deer sensing a predator. Neither of them had said it out loud, but they knew Carmen wasn't coming back. Then, a sound. A soft rustling. And then... Elena. It was Carmen's voice. Elena shot up, spinning toward the trees. Carmen? Scott grabbed her arm. Wait. Just wait. The voice came again, a little louder. Please, help me. I'm hurt. But it wasn't just the words. It was the way they were spoken. Each syllable dropped too cleanly, like they'd been rehearsed. The tremble was too perfect, the pain too intentional. It sounded real, but that was the problem. It sounded exactly like Carmen. Not close. Not similar. Exact. Elena's breathing grew shallow. It's her. I know it's her. She wouldn't leave us like that. Scott's hand trembled. Elena, what if it's not her anymore? The voice called again. I'm cold, please. This time it was closer. Too close. Scott scanned the tree line. And that's when he saw it, just a flash. Something pale between the trunks. Low to the ground. Motionless. Watching. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He just pulled Elena back, slowly, as the voice called once more. Scott. Elena. I need you. And then silence. Like the forest had exhaled. Elena fell to her knees, shaking. It knew our names. Scott didn't answer. He just stared into the trees, where the voice had come from. And then he whispered, more to himself than to her, it's not trying to scare us. It's trying to get close. Because nothing is more dangerous than something that knows exactly who you are. And nothing gets closer than a voice you already trust. By dawn, Elena hadn't slept. Her eyes were bloodshot, her body shivering, not from the cold, but from knowing that somewhere, out there, a thing was speaking with Carmen's voice. Scott hadn't spoken much either. He'd just been sharpening a broken piece of metal he'd found in the ruins of a rusted campsite nearby, hands shaking more with each stroke. But then it came again. This time, softer. Scott. He froze. Not Carmen's voice. His mother's. Scott, honey, are you out here? I need you. It wasn't possible. His mom had been dead for 4 years. He stood up, numb, like the ground had pulled him. The voice was so calm. So familiar. He could hear the rasp at the end of each breath, the way she used to sound when calling him in for dinner on summer nights. Elena's voice cut through the moment. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice shaking. Scott turned slowly. "You heard that, right?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed at something lying in the bushes. A piece of fabric. Carmen's tank top. Torn, soaked in something that wasn't mud. And beside it, a cracked phone, the screen blinking, as if trying to power on. When Scott picked it up, it started playing an audio file. No password. No unlock screen. Just one message. "Elena, don't listen. Don't follow. It's not me." Carmen's voice. Real this time. Shaky. Scared. The file cut off with a wet dragging sound and a scream. Elena collapsed, her hands over her ears, as if trying to stop it from burrowing into her skull. Scott dropped the phone like it burned. That's when it hit them both. The creature didn't hunt like a predator. It hunted like a memory. It didn't chase. It lured. It studied you, wore your past like skin, and whispered it back at you until you moved closer, until you stepped into its mouth willingly. You don't run from something like that. You reason with it. You beg. Or worse, you follow it. Because what if, just maybe, it really is the person you lost? And that's the horror no one escapes. They didn't speak for hours. Just walked, slow, deliberate steps, hoping the daylight would keep the voices away. But it didn't. By noon, they were deeper in the forest than ever. Their GPS hadn't worked since the day before. Every tree looked like the last. The jungle didn't lead anywhere. It just wrapped around them, coiling tighter. That's when Scott stopped. He felt it before he saw it. That sensation, like something just slipped behind a tree, just out of view. He raised his hand slowly, signaling Elena to stop. The silence was different now. Too complete. He squinted through the thick canopy, and there it was. A shape. Low to the ground. Not moving. But not still either, like it was breathing with the forest. Its skin was almost the same color as the moss around it, slick, rubbery, like a frog left out in the rain too long. But what hit him first was the head. It didn't have a face. Just a flat expanse. No mouth. No nose. But beneath the surface, something pulsed. As if voices were trapped inside it, pressing against the skin from within, muffled, distorted, desperate to be released. Elena pulled Scott back by the wrist. "We need to go," she mouthed, too afraid to make a sound. But the creature had already turned. Not with eyes. With attention. And then, from behind them, "Scott?" It was Elena's voice. Except Elena was in front of him, holding his arm, eyes wide. "Scott, please." It came again, but from deeper in the trees. Her exact voice. The same breath pattern. Same tone. The creature didn't chase them. It didn't lunge. It simply took a step forward, and another, moving like liquid thought through the brush. The jungle didn't protest. It let it pass. Scott stumbled back. That thing didn't just imitate voices. It collected them. And now, it had hers. You don't run from something that can sound like your best friend. You question your own mind. And in that doubt, it finds the space to move closer. They ran until their lungs gave out. Branches tore their clothes. Vines whipped at their faces. But still, behind them, the voice followed. Soft. Familiar. Too familiar. Sometimes it was Carmen. Sometimes it was Elena. Sometimes it was Scott himself, screaming for help. From behind. It was a maze. The trees refused to part. No path led out. Only inward. Then, a clearing. Small. Unexpected. Sunlight cut through like a blade, and for a moment, it felt real. Scott dropped to his knees, gasping, laughing like someone who knows they're already gone. Elena collapsed beside him. They were alive. But something felt wrong. Birds chirped again. Wind moved the leaves. Everything was too normal. Scott's phone buzzed in his pocket. He hadn't felt it vibrate in hours. When he pulled it out, a video had already started playing. It was him, sitting in that same clearing. Same clothes. Same scratch on his cheek. Same dirt on his knees. But in the video, he was alone. And behind him, in the tree line, a shape emerged. Silent. Towering. The camera glitched, and Scott's voice came through the speaker. If you're watching this, don't believe anything you hear. Even if it sounds like me. Elena turned pale. Scott, she said. But he was already shaking his head. I didn't record this, he whispered. Then, she spoke again. Scott. But her tone had changed. Flat. Wrong. He turned to look at her, really look, and his stomach turned. Her expression was blank. Her lips too still. The voice didn't come from her mouth. It came from the trees. The thing had found its way in. Elena's real voice cried out from the jungle, not far off. Scott. I'm here. Please, I'm still here. He spun in circles. Two Elenas. One beside him. One calling for him. Which one was real? Which one was real? His breath caught in his throat. Because that's the point. It doesn't need strength. Or speed. Just one moment of hesitation. One doubt. And in that doubt, it becomes you. When the rescue team found Scott 2 days later, he was curled in the clearing, face blank, whispering to himself. And when they asked him who he was, he just smiled. And answered in someone else's voice.